I'm going to open the meeting of Ashland's 2018 deliberative session. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to Ashland's 2018 deliberative session. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I'm Bobby Horder, your town moderator. To my right is the town attorney, Paul Fitzgerald, Charlie Smith, town administrator, your board of selectmen. Sandra Coleman will be sitting here as my assistant moderator and timekeeper. Everyone should have checked in with the supervisors of the checklist and received a purple voting card. Also on the back table are the voter's guide listing all the warrant articles and other budgets and other information from various departments and causes. Special seating in the very back, and it's designated, is for non-Ashland visitors. A few brief announcements. Please mute or silence your cell phones. Remember, this is your opportunity to ask your questions. Anyone wishing to speak should raise their hand and be recognized by me before speaking. When you do go to the microphone, please state your name and have your purple voting card with you. This is being taped and video recorded, and those people have asked me, when you do go to the microphone, please speak right into the microphone so the tape recording picks it up. Today, I'll be presenting 42 warrant articles. Because we have so many warrant articles to address, initial presentations are limited to 5 minutes, response to 3 minutes per speaker. All votes will be taken by hand by holding up your purple voting card. Non-residents allowed to speak are the town attorney as well as the town administrator. Remember, mutual respect for varying viewpoints during today's business session is expected. Okay, we'll start. And you can follow along in your voter's guide. Article 1 is the election of officers, and I'm going to read off the various positions and who has signed up to run. Board of Selectmen, 3-year term, 2 positions, Fran Newton, Kathleen DeWolf. Board of Selectmen, 2-year term, 1 position, Lee Sharps. Town moderator is blank. Town clerk, tax collector, 3-year term, Pat Tucker. Town trustee of the trust funds, a 3-year term, Katie Marr and Tom Peters. Library trustee, Mardine Badger. Supervisor of the checklist, Bev Ober, Phyllis Reitzma. Electric Commissioner, 3-year term, Sandra Coleman. Electric Commissioner, 1-year term, Glenn Dion. Where am I? Water and Sewer Commissioner, 3-year term, David Toth. Water and Sewer Commissioner, 2-year term is blank. Budget Committee, 3-year term, 2 positions, 1 person, Sherry Downing. Budget Committee, 2-year term, no one signed up. Cemetery Trustee, no one signed up. So moving on to Article 2, and I will be announcing the articles. I'll be reading if there's any tax impact. I'll read the article, and then I will give the Board of Selectmen's recommendations and also the Budget Committee's recommendations. Okay, Article 2, no tax impact in 2018. Passage of this article shall override the 10% limitation imposed on this appropriation due to the non-recommendation of the Budget Committee. And the article reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,799,420 for the purpose of a road and utility reconstruction project on Thompson Street, High Street, and Smith Hill Road, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $1,799,420 of bonds or notes in accordance with the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to authorize the municipal officials to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. This will take a 3/5 majority on the ballot vote in March to pass. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, not recommended by the Budget Committee a vote of 3-3. Charlie, are you going to do a... Okay. Charlie Smith is going to do a presentation.
More like a couple comments about the article. We believe this is the time to move forward with this warrant article to repair the road now. This past year, the town had a road analysis done by Lake Region Planning Commission, and these are the worst roads that we have in town. But not just the fact that they're the worst roads in town, this opportunity for us is significant now because we were accepted into a state revolving fund. Only of the 42 that applied and we were one of 16 that were accepted. A lot of towns that apply to the state revolving fund are for the financial benefits of being a part of the fund. For instance, this fund would offer principal loan forgiveness for us. We would receive about 10% forgiveness off this loan. So it's at 1.7 now. We could take off about $160,000. They have below market interest rates. Their 20 and 30 rates are right now they're at 2.42%. Compared to last year when we got quoted by a couple banks that we were at 2.7 and up to 4.2%, and those were based off 20-year notes. The reason being is banks don't lend for 30 years based off of they think the roads will deteriorate to the point where it's not worth it for them. Our repayments on these wouldn't start for over a year after the completion of the project. State revolving fund has no closing costs, no repayment costs. Of course, the question is how would we pay this? Our thought was we would use our block grant to pay for this. The block grant has, right now we have about $57,000. An amortization schedule on this bond would be, for 30 years, it's about $84,000 a year. But if you take the 57 from that 84, now our payment would be about $27,000 a year. Water and Sewer said they would pay about $300,000 towards this project. So we went from about 27, the tax impact would be probably about $17,000 a year. Now, that would be lowered over time because that block grant goes up. So the appropriation wouldn't be too much, it'd be about we'd expect about $17,000 a year. But you know, the town has already committed a lot to this project. The engineering is all done for this project. It's ready to go. We just need the town's okay to move forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions from the people attending? If you'll go to the end, be sure and say your name and your street address, please.
Teja Singh Shivalingam, 9 Pine Arden Drive, Ashland. So there was mention that the Water and Sewer Commission would be paying $300,000 towards this project. My understanding is the Water and Sewer Commission also has another building project that they're working on, and I'm wondering where project. Thank you.
Okay. Are you going to address that, Charlie, or is there going to be a...
The $300,000 would be part of the note of the 1.79 million. We wouldn't expect them to pay us the whole $300,000 up front. They can if they want, but I don't expect that the case. They'd finance it, would be expecting probably about $10,000, give or take.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the... Go ahead. Oh. Microphone trade.
Hi, Karen Hridaya Shivalingam.
Okay. Can you speak up a little? I can't even hear.
They can't hear me either. That's why my comment is just that it seemed like there was an issue with the sound system. I was wondering if we could resolve that before we went further into the meeting. Can you hear me now? You can hear me now? Okay. My comment was just about the sound system so that we can make sure we could all hear each other.
Okay, okay. I think Craig is looking into that. Any other comments? Questions? Seeing no hands, Article 2 will appear on the warrant as presented today. Article 3, no tax impact paid from septage receiving revenue. Now, can everybody hear me on this mic? I think it's that mic's this issue. To see if the municipality will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,500,000 gross budget for the construction and equipping of a new septage receiving station and to authorize the issuance of not more than $1,500,000 in bonds or notes for that purpose, in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen and Water and Sewer Commissioners to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 5-2. And is one of the Water and Sewer Commissioners going to speak? I believe Mr. Toth.
The Water and Sewer Department would like to apply for a $1.5 million state revolving fund loan. We've already heard what the benefits of those loans are, and this would be from the Department of Environmental Services for construction of the new septage receiving station. We need to come before the town to get town approval in order to borrow these funds, but the loan will not increase taxes or water and sewer rates because it will be paid for from septage receiving revenues. The station will cost approximately $2.5 million. $1 million of that will come from a grant and from existing funds. We estimate the total cost of the loan will be about $1.52 million, and that yearly payments will be about $150,000 over a 10-year period. The current terms that I had were 2% for 10 years with between 10 and 30% principal forgiveness. As I said, the loan will be paid for from septage receiving revenues, and these revenues are critical to our operation because they fund capital improvements and they help us maintain comparatively low rates. We have generated $425,000 in septage receiving revenues in 2016, and this year we generated $524,000. We have the 10th lowest water rates in the state of New Hampshire, about $250 per year for a family of 4. The New Hampshire average is $475. The new station will enable us to increase septage receiving revenues. The conservative estimate of 30% would amount to about $650,000 in revenues per year. The screening equipment in the new station will help extend the useful life of the lagoons for many years by removing plastic, rags, grit, and other unmentionables from the incoming sewage and septage. And this will enable us to delay expensive dredging of the lagoons and to devote revenues to other scheduled capital projects in town. The reason we need the loan is to complete the station before spring of 2019 so that we can begin increasing revenues in that year. We also want to spread out payments in order to accomplish other needed capital improvements like replacing the water and sewer lines on Thompson Street and on Highland Street. We also estimate that we will need to spend between $4.9 million and $5.7 million on capital improvements to our systems over the next 5 years. This is where I was supposed to have pictures of the station up there, but our equipment's not working. Anyway, we can invest in the new receiving station and increase revenues without increasing taxes or water and sewer rates. And these revenues help us maintain comparatively low rates and allow us to make these important capital improvements. The Water and Sewer Department will provide a much more detailed information on this project and our operations at a public information session on February 28th at 6:30 at the fire station. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toth. Questions? Dr. Singer?
So, my understanding here is...
Go to the microphone more.
More? Okay. Okay. So it says here that it will be paid from septage receiving revenue. Yet I don't see that the bonds are revenue bonds. When I went to one of the public hearings and that was mentioned, there was, I recall, a discussion or a statement that the bank would likely not approve a revenue bond. My concern is, if a bank won't approve a revenue bond, why as a town are we taking the risk of having a bond that a bank would not? Therefore, I think that the bond should be a revenue bond, and therefore I'll make a motion that in the two places where it reads bond, that the word revenue bond be inserted. That'd be revenue bond. There's just two locations.
Okay, I need to know exactly. Every place it says bond, you're making...
Two places, I think, right?
Okay, you're asking for it to be a motion...
Revenue bond.
Revenue bond.
Yes.
So that'd be line 3 and line 5. Do I have a second? Singh, you're going to make a second? Did you get that? Is there a second? Yeah. His wife. That's okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all right. Okay, is there any further discussion? Dave? I'm not holding on.
The intent of this article, as I have already said, is to apply for an SRF loan, a state revolving fund loan, which is not a revenue bond. So making this a revenue bond would mean that we would not be able to apply for the loan we want to apply for. It would mean that we would not get the principal forgiveness. It would mean that we wouldn't, our payments wouldn't be delayed a year after completion of construction. We would have to pay closing costs and on and on and on. I think we have shown that we have plenty of money at Water and Sewer to cover the payments of this bond, and the town is simply not at risk if they grant us approval for this loan.
Any further comments on this motion? Okay, I will reread the motion that we're going to vote on. To see if the municipality will vote to raise and appropriate $1,500,000 for the construction and equipping of a new septic receiving station, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $1,500,000 in revenue bonds or notes for that purpose, in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen and Water and Sewer Commissioners to issue and negotiate such revenue bonds or notes and determine the rate of interest thereon. That's the restated, amended article. So everybody who's a registered voter, grab your purple card. All those in favor of the amended Article 3, raise your cards. All those opposed, raise your cards. Okay, the motion fails. Are there any other questions? Okay, Article 3 will appear on the ballot as initially presented. Article 4, to see if the municipality will vote to raise and appropriate, Article 4, let me start over. No tax impact paid from septic receiving revenue. To see if the municipality will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 gross budget for development of an asset management plan for the Water and Sewer Department sewer capital assets, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $30,000 in bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to authorize the Water and Sewer Commissioners to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-0, not recommended by the Budget Committee 3-1. And Dave, were you going to address this, or Alan?
This opportunity comes to us as an SRF loan, but it really acts more like a matching grant, a 50-50 matching grant. And it's because of the way the money comes down to DES from the federal government. So our total cost for this will be $15,000, and it will be matched by DES for $15,000, and those funds again will come out of septic receiving revenues, existing revenues, and will not have any impact on rates or taxes. Even though this says it's an asset management plan, it's not really a document per se. It is a computer-based system that develops the capital improvement plan, in this case by analyzing above ground and below ground sewer assets like pumping, like pumps and piping, headworks, screening devices, lagoons, etc. And it predicts when they will need to be replaced and how much the replacement will cost. The program saves a great deal of money by making operations more efficient and by helping us to prioritize projects. The system is tied to systems that we already have, our geographical information, our GIS system, which lists, locates, and provides detailed specifications for our assets, and our computerized maintenance management system, which schedules, tracks, and documents maintenance activities and costs. A lot of the data that we have already put into those systems also goes into the asset management plan. The Department of Environmental Services, I have here strongly recommends rather than insists, because they strongly recommend by asking us to do this and giving us money to help us do this, but they also require that anytime we apply for a grant or loans, which we must do in order to have enough money to take care of our long-term capital expenses, every time we do that, we have to have an asset management plan for those assets. So this is an extremely important plan. For the $15,000 we have to invest, we will save thousands.
Thank you, Mr. Toth. Any questions? Seeing no questions, Article 4 will appear on the warrant as presented today. Article 5, estimated tax impact is $11.70. Shall the town of Ashland raise and appropriate as the town general government operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein totaling $2,783,337. Should the article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $2,780,961, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Ashland or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Recommended by the Budget Committee 6-1. And does anyone have any comments? You're going to raise your hand. Jeanette Stewart.
The Budget Committee came up with the figure of $2,783,337 after meeting with the department heads, sometimes 2 times, sometimes 3 times, and going over everything. We came up with a budget that we felt that the department heads could work with and that would be best for the town.
Thank you. And Jeanette Stewart, by the way, I don't know if I missed it, she was our chairman of the Budget Committee, is why she was speaking. Any comments? Questions? Yes, sir. If you'll go to the microphone with your purple card. Is he? Pardon me?
Bob Baker, Highland Street.
Thank you.
My question is the tax impact, the $11.70. What is the tax impact if we default to the other budget?
Okay. Is someone from...
I didn't hear you.
It's probably less than a couple cents. The
Well,
way
that's misleading. What is the exact number compared to
I would say $11.69. Because
Thank
here's
you.
how we come up with that figure. We take the appropriation and then you simply divide it into the town's evaluation, the total valuation, assessed valuation of the town.
The only point I wanted to make is that
Yep.
you show what the tax impact is of the new budget.
Sure.
You don't show what the other
Yeah.
one is.
Yeah, and honestly, it seems kind of high, but you know, your tax rate, it doesn't include any revenue that's taken out, so it's not as high as it kind of seems like it is. It's just a straight division.
Jeanette?
Charlie, can you explain to the people about the default budget, because the selectmen are the ones that did that?
As for the default budget, the way we prepared that this year, anything that had like a contractual obligation for the town, we moved that over to the default, where department heads said that they cut certain expenditures in their budget, we cut them instead of simply just moving them forward from default. For example, there's a build and maintenance line that had default $10,000 last year. Well, the department head said, you know what, we could probably do better with just need $7,000. So we just moved the 7 over instead of putting the 10 over into the default.
Thank you, Charlie. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing no others, Article 5 will appear on the ballot as presented today. Article 6, shall the town of Ashland raise and appropriate as the Ashland Electric Department operating budget, not including appropriation by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget, posted with the warrant, or as amended by the vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $3,125,250. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $3,125,250, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Town of Ashland or by law. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 5-1. Does anyone have any questions? Dr. Singer?
Can you hear me?
No.
No.
You got to speak right into the microphone.
Okay. It's not a question, it's a comment. I witnessed some of the discussion that went on among the elected commissioners in creating this budget, and I just want to say that I felt that they did a very meticulous and fiscally conservative job in coming to their budget, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Seeing no other comments, Article 6 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 7, shall the Town of Ashland raise and appropriate as the Ashland Water Sewer Department operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget, posted with the warrant, or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $178,191. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $253,066, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Town of Ashland or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 5-2. Any comments or questions? Seeing no hands, Article 7 will appear on the ballot as presented. I will entertain a motion to limit reconsideration of all the articles voted on so far. Okay, do I have a second? Several people seconded it. Dave Toth seconded it. Did you get that? Did you get the Dave? Okay. And to explain, I'm sure all of you know what this means. It means that we can't go back. Oh, I didn't think I did that. Verizon Wireless. That means that we can't go back to the previous warrant articles we've already voted on. That's what passing this motion means. So we have a motion that has been made and seconded to limit reconsideration of all the warrant articles voted on so far. Those in favor, please hold up your purple voting card. Okay. Those opposed, raise your purple voting card. That passes. Moving on. Article 8. Shall the Town of Ashland raise and appropriate as the Ashland Sewer Department operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $422,401. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $403,780, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Town of Ashland or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting. I'm not going to read the rest of that. Recommended by the Budget Committee, voted 5-2. Does anybody have any comments or questions on Article 8? Okay, seeing no hands, Article 8 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 9, estimated tax impact, 23 cents. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $53,500 for the first-year payment of the 4-year lease purchase agreement for fire engine as authorized vote on March 14, 2017. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 5-1. Are there any comments, or Chief Heath has a comment?
Steve Heath, Fire Chief. As it states, this was voted last year, and we entered a contract. The truck is being built now. We anticipate delivery in April or May of this year. So obviously, I urge your support, continued support on this article.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Thank you, Chief Heath. The Article 9 will appear on the ballot as presented. Did I miss somebody?
Thought it was going to fall.
Okay. Article 10, estimated tax impact 5 cents. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $12,938 for the final payment of the 4-year lease purchase of the transfer station mini loader as authorized by the vote on March 10, 2015. Recommended by Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 4-1-1. Are there any comments or questions anyone might have? Seeing none, Article 10 will appear on the ballot as presented today. Article 11, estimated tax impact 11 cents. To see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to enter into a 5-year lease purchase agreement for $189,590 for the purpose of purchasing a 4-wheel drive loader for the Public Works Department, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $27,142 for the first-year payment for that purpose. A simple majority vote is required on this article in March. Board of Selectmen, they recommended 4-0, recommended by Budget Committee 7-0. And Craig Moore, the director, will speak on this article.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Craig Moore, Public Works Director. A lot of you have seen the loader out there. It's 38 years old. Every time we drive it, we need to top off the fluids because they're leaking kind of all over the road. That means oil, hydraulic, antifreeze. We had a breakdown this winter during one of our big storms, and Lee had a hard time, probably a week worth, trying to find parts for it. We couldn't find a replacement part, but we found a rebuild kit. When he was trying to take that loader apart, it broke off inside the block, all the bolts, and that just goes to show you how... Hello. Without Lee's skill, probably it would have been probably in trouble if he didn't get that bolt out. That would have been a lot more work. It struggles to get up the hills, and it's been around a long time. If that thing breaks down, it's going to cost us about $7,600 a month to rent the exact same equivalent loader that we're proposing. Need a new battery, I think. It's pretty imperative that we get something. This plows all the little roads in town where a big truck won't fit. So probably should have been replaced a long time ago, but it's on for now for replacement. So that's it.
Thank you, Craig. Any questions for Mr. Moore? Seeing no hands, Article 11 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 12, tax impact, 53 cents. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $125,000 to be placed into the Road Improvements Capital Reserve Fund established in 2012 for the purpose of repairing roads. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 4-2. Any questions? Seeing no hands, Article 12 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 13, estimated tax impact, 21 cents. to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be added into the Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund established in 2013 for the purpose of repairing or purchasing fire department vehicles. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 4-2. Does anybody have any questions? Chief Heath is stepping to the microphone.
Yeah, this is an important article for us also. Even though we've entered a contract for a purchase of a replacement engine, down the road we're looking at replacing other equipment, and we feel that it's very important to continue putting money aside now to alleviate pressure down the road if we have to when we have to replace something else. So again, I support this article.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? Okay, Article 13 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 14, estimated tax impact 15 cents, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $35,000 to be added into the Department of Public Works Capital Reserve Fund established in 2016 for the purpose of vehicle or equipment purchase, replacement, or repairs. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 4-2. Any questions? Seeing no hands, Article 14 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 15, tax impact 13 cents, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be placed into the Police Department Capital Reserve Fund established in 2013 for the purpose of repairing or purchasing police department vehicles. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended Budget Committee 4-2. And Chief Randall will speak to this.
This capital reserve was started in 2013 as a method to replace vehicles as we need them at the police department. As I said, ever since 2013, our police vehicles is the staple of our department. It's how we get to you to serve you. Without the vehicles being adequate to get to you, to help you, it would kind of defeat the purpose of having the police department. I will tell you that it has effectively worked. It is keeping the tax rate level rather than spiking the taxes every time we need to buy a new vehicle. I would hopefully have the voters support us again this year with putting the $30,000 in that capital reserve, because it is actually working to keep the taxes from spiking. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Randall. Any questions for Chief? Article 15 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 16, tax impact 11 cents, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be added into the Building Maintenance and Repair Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of maintaining and repairing all town buildings. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, not to recommend by the Budget Committee, vote of 3-3. Are there any questions or comments? Lee Sharps.
I just want to give a little background on what the condition is right now for people who may not know, why we're asking for to continue funding for the town office building. The building, if you don't know, is in need of desperate repairs. In due time, the windows are going to have to be replaced. Concerted efforts were made, concerted, I think it's supposed to say, but I don't think consortium's the right word, were made to keep the windows buttoned up against the winter cold, but this has prevented our ability to open the windows. And since they're fiberglassed in place, air doesn't hit the window, causing them to slowly deteriorate. Other projects, the tile in the police department has worn down, and the carpet has deteriorated so much down to the base floor that it needs to be replaced and could cause us liability now and in the future. The security system needs to be updated. Recently, a vehicle backed into the old jail building, and we don't have cameras, so we have to pay the claim with our insurance carrier. We also intend to finish the fire alarm system, as we need smoke detectors. and in closing the building needs repairs, but this fund is also for emergencies in the event anything happens. And I'd also like to add that I asked the other day if this would have any effect on possible solar installation in the future, and we would be just fine with anything we decide to do.
Thank you, Ms. Sharps. Any questions? No questions. Article 16 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 17, tax impact 11 cents. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be placed in the Ashland Library Building Capital Reserve Fund established in 2015 for the purpose of purchasing, building, and/or renovating a facility, including furnishing and equipment for the Ashland Town Library. Board of Selectmen recommended 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 4-2. Anybody want to? Alice Staples is going to speak.
Hi, I'm Alice Staples. I'm the chair of the Ashland Town Library Trustee Board. With Article 17, we are again asking for $25,000 to be added to our Capital Reserve Fund. The current library here in the Scribner Building has a great location, and we hear from people all the time that it is a great location, and there is some sentimentality attached to the library being in that building. But the library has outgrown the building, and the building was not designed to be a 21st century library. Between the Scribner trustees and the library trustees and the library staff, we try to maintain the facility and services to best serve the town. But we could do so much more with a larger and updated building. Now, children pack into a very small room for children's programs and story times. There's one table with 4 chairs for any crafting programs or studying. There are no private spaces for quiet study or work. The collections have to be kept to a minimum to fit on the available shelf space. A new facility would allow us to offer more technology, more meeting space, and more collections. Please vote yes on Article 17 and visit the library's website to give a personal donation. Thank you. The AshlandTownLibrary.org is the website.
Thank you, Alice. Any questions for Alice? Can you go to the microphone?
I'm Amanda Loud. I just want to know what the current balance is. It started in 2015, so how much is in there now?
Okay.
$50,065.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Article 17 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 18, no tax impact. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $2,000 to be added to the Emergency Management Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of covering expenses as needed during the activation of the town's emergency operation plan. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any questions? Chief Heath.
Okay, this article is for emergency services. If, for example, if we had to open this shelter, this provides a source of money to take care, provide food and shelter operations during a declared emergency in town. This was recommended by New Hampshire Homeland Security that we do this, and it's not going to be continuous every year. Our original goal, as we set out, was to establish a fund of about $5,000 to sustain this, should we need to open the shelter. We're very near that goal now. This would make it, put us at $4,000, I believe. And then there are no plans to continue the capital reserve increase in the future once we reach 5,000.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Article 18 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 19, tax impact 3 cents. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $36,500 for a town hall planning study to evaluate its physical condition and its future use, and to fund one half of this appropriation by grant from the Land and Community Heritage Investment Program in the amount of $18,250, which has already been awarded to the town for this purpose, with the required matching amount balance of $18,250, to have $10,000 come from the town building maintenance capital reserve fund and $8,250 come from other grants and donations if available, or from general taxation. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-1, not to recommend by the Budget Committee 4-2. Does anyone have any questions? Do you have your purple voting card? Thanks.
Is it on? Susan McLeod, Heritage Commission. The Town Hall, in its various roles as meeting place, entertainment centers, school classrooms, town and police offices, have served the town for 145 years. As owners of one of our most historically important buildings, the citizens of Ashland need to consider how Town Hall will continue to serve the community and connect us to our historic past. So there are obviously issues that need to be addressed for this building. So that
I can't hear.
So the L-CHIP is a matching grant. We were not awarded a lump sum that was put in some account. The way it runs is it's a refundable. So we do not have to spend the entire amount of money. When you write a grant, you write it for the maximum you think you could possibly need, but we don't need to expend it all. And the Heritage Commission has been working on seeking other grants and other forms of funding. So these 3 cents might not even be necessary from each taxpayer to get a historic structural report, which is a blueprint outlining a concerted plan with phasing in of all the things that need to be done to address the deterioration of the physical structure, and plans for how to get in what will be needed soon, like a new heating system and everything else. So I'm just recommending that people consider that it is a plan that lays out phasing in of getting this building ADA compliant, code compliant, and usable for another 145 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Fran?
I would just like to lend my support to this grant. I can tell you in the past that the town applied for an L-CHIP grant to redo the bathrooms in the town hall, which are not ADA compliant, and we couldn't even qualify because we hadn't had these engineering studies done. So in order to get a lot of grant money that's out there, we need to have evidence that we have a solid plan and that it has been reviewed by engineers. The things that Susan mentioned just scratch the surface. As Lee mentioned a little while ago, the town hall is in really, really bad shape, and we need to do everything we can to improve its condition. And this L-CHIP grant is a wonderful first start at getting that done. This is the second year of a grant that was approved 2 years ago, and if we don't pass it this time, it's gone. So this is our last opportunity to put it in place, so I urge your support.
Thank you, Fran. Any other comments, questions? Seeing no hands, Article 9 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 20, no tax impact. To see if the town will vote to establish a capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of upgrading the town tax maps to be named the property tax map CRF, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $39,300 to be placed into the fund, and to further appoint the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend. This sum to come from the fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. Recommended by your Board of Selectmen 4-1, not to recommend by the Budget Committee 3-3. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Casey?
So just a little background information for this article. It's our GIS mapping project we've been working on, and it's sort of a land audit to help with our tax assessment in town. It reviews all 1,700 parcels we have in town to make sure the size, shape, location, and ownership are correct. Basically, like they said, there's no taxation in the town. It's coming out of the unassigned fund balance. We just need the voters' permission to use that money, and it's supposed to help with our tax assessment of the town.
Thank you. Any questions for Casey? Seeing none, Article 20 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 21. Shall the town of Ashland, if Article 2 is defeated, and let me remind you, Article 2 is the Thompson Street. Just to remind you, if Article 2 is defeated, shall the town of Ashland authorize the governing body to expend from the Road Improvements Capital Reserve Fund to repair the roads. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, not to recommend by the Budget Committee 3-3. Any comments or questions? Go right ahead.
I'm Amanda Loud. So if the Article to fix, the Article 2 is defeated and it goes to the capital reserve to find the money to fix these streets, how is that going to affect that capital reserve fund? I'm assuming there's going to be more needs than just these streets. You know, I'm trying to find out what is, if I could ask the select board, it was unanimous in wanting this, what's this doomsday scenario going to look like when the capital reserve fund is used to fix these roads?
Okay. Charlie?
All right, let me start by apologizing, I guess, if there's anyone that's confused about this article. Basically, we formed this article as against no means no. Last year, the town said no to Article 2 for funding Thompson Street. This year, this article is really, if you say no to that, let us take from capital reserve funds. The amount that we would take from the capital reserve funds, I guess, would still be determined. Right in about now, I think there's about, how much is there in 336. If another 125 comes, that's about what we have to work with. Yeah, 366 now, and if the one from before, another 125, there's a little bit under 500,000. That's all we have to repair that road. How much we use, I guess it would really depend on how much the BW director recommends. We know it costs $1.7 million to repair the whole road, so it would definitely be under the 500. If that would only probably be maybe a quarter of the road, Craig, if that. It wouldn't really get very far. Does that help answer your question? Okay.
So I guess my ultimate question is, so you take money from the capital reserve fund, and that would mean that there's less money in the capital reserve fund.
Oh, yeah.
And that there's far more roads in the town of Ashland than those three. And so now if Article 2 is defeated, you know, we're hanged. We could possibly, I don't know what the year will hold. Maybe all the roads will be fine. Yeah, right, yeah. Gold at the end of the rainbow.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Fran?
That's a great question, Amanda, and also a very concerning one. The way we would like to look forward is that this Article 2 will pass, and then that capital reserve fund that we've established and is funded well will then take care of all of our roads for the foreseeable future. The roads mentioned in Article 2 are the worst roads in town by independent review, and if anyone's driven over Thompson Street, you know how bad they are. We need to get them done. However, occasionally something might come up. I mean, there's some really enormous potholes that will require repair, and if the no means no is in effect, we can't even do that. All we can do is simple maintenance. So this is just sort of a fail-safe so that at least we can do some urgent repairs. But it is our goal not to deplete that capital reserve, but to use it going forward to maintain all of our roads in town.
Thank you. Amanda, did that address your okay. Any other questions? Seeing none. Article 21 will appear as presented. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to discontinue the Employee Disability Payment Fund created in 2002. Said funds, with accumulated interest to date of withdrawal, are to be transferred to the municipality's general fund. Simple majority vote required for this to pass in March. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee 4-2. Any questions? Harold Lamos.
Thank you. Basically what this is it's housekeeping. It's us asking you for the ability to remove these monies from a fund that we no longer use. We have disability insurance. We still intend on taking care of our employees to the full capacity. This is just funds sitting in a policy, just sitting there, no interest. We'd like to put it back in the general fund. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Harold. All right, Article 22 will appear on the ballot as presented. Article 23. Shall the town of Ashland rescind the adoption of the Municipal Budget Act, RSA Chapter 32? Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, vote 3-2. Any... Okay, Dr. Singer.
Teja Singh Shivalingam. My concern about the warrant article is that it would eliminate the Budget Committee. That is the function of rescinding that RSA, okay? So therefore, and I do not think that we should eliminate the Budget Committee. We need to have an extra set of eyes. We need to have a check and balance on the construction, the review, evaluation of the budget on a yearly basis. And therefore, I'd like to make a motion that we make this amendment to this warrant article for the purpose of informing the voters, that it would read, after the warrant article as it reads, it would say, if this article passes, the Budget Committee will be eliminated. Because I don't think that it's clear on there. Even in the voter's guide, the description does not mention that, and the voters want to know that. Thank you.
Okay, I need you to come write that down.
I wrote it down.
You did write it down? Okay, do I have, well, once I have it written down, I'll state the motion, the amendment, and then see if we have a second. Okay. Yeah. Did you get? No. Do I have a second on this? All right, Jeanette Stewart seconded it. I'll get to you during the discussion. All right, the amended motion will read, shall the town of Ashland rescind the adoption of the Municipal Budget Act, RSA, Chapter 32? Here is the amendment with this sentence added at the end. If this article passes, the Budget Committee will be eliminated. Now this is open for discussion. Fran will go first and then Jeanette.
RSA 32 outlines the process and responsibilities of the Budget Committee, and this is the way it's supposed to work. However, it has been my experience over the past 6 years, having been on both the Budget Committee and as a selectman, that this process breaks down when there is a profound lack of trust and inadequate non-collaborative communication between the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen. I have observed that this relationship has often been adversarial, whereby one body, the Board of Selectmen, is believed to be adding unnecessarily to the budget, and the Budget Committee is seen to be cutting for the sake of cutting. Regardless of the actual facts, the result is one of real conflict and often a power struggle. Given that both the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee members are elected, financial expertise may not be part of an individual's background. By rescinding the Budget Act, the Board of Selectmen can designate an advisory committee composed of those with financial expertise. The budget thus presented directly to the voters, including appropriate hearings, would be a result of careful study of the needs of the town versus the ability of taxpayers to support such a budget. Clearly, oversight of financial matters is essential. However, budgets must be prepared with the best information about the needs to keep services operational, preparing for the future and emergency needs, impact on taxes and contractual obligations. While lowering our relatively high tax rate is of utmost importance, simply cutting the budget will not solve the problem. It would take a cut of about $250,000 to reduce the tax by only $1 million. A cut of that magnitude to an already lean budget would be catastrophic for the continuing operation of the town. But oversight and collaboration with a financially astute advisory committee will ensure that the appropriate controls of the budget will occur and trust by the taxpayers can be restored.
Thank you. Jeanette Stewart.
I'm not speaking as chairman of the Budget Committee, I'm speaking as a taxpayer. The thing that bothers me the most, Fran talked about trust, but for Article 23, it doesn't even tell you that if you vote yes, they're doing away with the Budget Committee. It doesn't tell you that. And if you have trust, you're supposed to tell the people that. I love this town. It's a great town. The people here are just, you know, great people, and it's just a great town, and it really bothers me that on Article 23, it doesn't say anything about if you vote yes, you eliminate the Budget Committee, or if you vote no, you keep the Budget Committee in place. And that really bothers me. And I just want to say to the townspeople, the Budget Committee and the Selectmen both work, you know, very hard to do what they have to do. But the Budget Committee spends a lot of extra time meeting with the department heads, meeting over and over and over to come up with a budget that the town can afford.
Thank you. Any other comments? One moment, please. Go right ahead.
Richard Perret, I move that we move forward with the end the discussion here.
Are you making a motion to call the question?
I am making a motion to end the discussion.
To call the, do I have a second? Glenn Diane. Okay. I already read it, didn't I? Yes. I already. So does everybody understand the addition of that one sentence? This is what we're voting on. Article 23. Give me, so I can read it again. I'm sorry. Thank you, Fran. All those in favor of calling the question signify by raising your purple. Those opposed? Okay. We're moving on. The amended Article 23 will read, shall the town of Ashland rescind the adoption of the Municipal Budget Act, RSA Chapter 32, with the addition of this sentence. If this article passes, the Budget Committee will be eliminated. All those in favor of the amended Article 23, please raise your purple cards. All right. All those opposed, raise your purple cards. Okay. It passed. So Article 23, as amended today, will appear on the ballot. Moving on. Article 24, shall the town of Ashland reduce the number of members of the Municipal Budget Committee from 9 to 7, 5 elected members at large and 1 Board of Select representative and 1 Ashland School Board representative. This would be effective March 2019. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 3-2. Are there any comments? Harold.
Like Fran stated, a lot of us here on the BOS started with the Budget Committee. I started in 2013. I guess if I was to use a really bad analogy right now, we had a great starting football team there now, then, and now you couldn't even get 5 to play basketball. We're having a lot of drop-off in attendance, a lot of drop-off in interest. We'd like to move forward and still be productive, but if you have empty seats, that's sometimes hard to do. Anybody that's come to any of the meetings knows that there's not a lot that me and Mrs. Newton get along doing, but this is one thing that I think that we need to agree upon. If we have empty seats, it doesn't portray a good image to you folks sitting out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Any other comments? Seeing none, Article 24 will appear as presented. Article 25 is the first of our petitioned warrant articles. Shall we rescind the provisions of RSA 40:13, known as SB2, as adopted by the Town of Ashland on March 9, 1999, so that the official ballot will no longer be used for voting on all questions, but only for the election of officers and certain other questions for which the official ballot is required by state law. RSA 40:14(7)(a). 3/5 majority of those voting on the question shall be required to rescind. Board of Selectmen recommended 3-1. Are there any comments or questions on this particular article? Seeing no hands, Article 25 will appear as presented. Article 26. Shall we adopt the provisions of RSA :14B to delegate the determination of the default budget to the Municipal Budget Committee, which has been adopted under RSA 32:14, as provided for by RSA 40:14B, default budget determined by Budget Committee. RSA 40:14B2 BC. 3/5 majority required to pass. Board of Selectmen did not recommend 4-0. Any comments or questions on this article? Fran.
Sorry. Just one brief comment. I think the Board of Selectmen are in the best position to understand both contractual obligations, unanticipated events like rising gas prices, because we work closely with the department heads on a continuing basis. And I just think that we have the best view of what should be in the default.
Thank you. Amanda, did you? Okay, where are we? Article 25 will appear, 26. Sorry about that. Article 27, shall the Town of Ashland elect the Planning Board by ballot? RSA 669:17, RSA 673:2. Board of Selectmen vote not to recommend 4-0. Any comments or questions on this particular article? Seeing no comments, Article 27 will appear as presented. Article 28, shall the Town of Ashland's Zoning Board of Adjustment members be elected as prescribed by RSA 673:3 and RSA 673:5. Board of Selectmen vote not to recommend 4-0. Any comments or questions? Fran.
This applies to both this one and the previous one. As you can see by the complete absence of a lot of people who've stepped up to the plate to run for office, I think having elections for 2 more committees is kind of a waste of time.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? I wanted to explain, perhaps this out of turn because I'm acting as moderator, but on several of these articles, you will notice that the Budget Committee, there's not a vote. We only, I was a Budget Committee member. We only voted on money articles, just to explain why that vote isn't there. Article 29, petition article. Shall the town of Ashland adopt the community rights-based ordinance to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and ecosystems of Ashland, New Hampshire by establishing a community Bill of Rights which prohibits activities and projects that violate the Bill of Rights and which provides for enforcement of the Bill of Rights against corporations and governments engaged in those activities and projects. The Board of Selectmen voted not to recommend, if this is correct, 3-0 to 1. Okay. I was going to say, are there any questions? You go right ahead. You need to go to the microphone for everybody to hear. And please state your name and...
Ginger Grant, and I live at 36 Highland Street. I'd like to move to accept the Article 29, the Community Rights-Based Ordinance, as presented, inclusive of the 9-page ordinance as written.
Why isn't there a motion?
Because we're not accepting, we're not voting on it.
Well, other articles had motions. No, she's...
To accept it. And
Except...
all we're here is to discuss it.
All right, I have to talk to the attorney. Okay, I've consulted with the town attorney. Is your motion asking that the 9 pages be on the ballot also? Is that what your motion means?
No, my motion is to keep the wording intact as is.
Okay, and the attorney said that all that does, if we vote on that today, it doesn't pass it or accept it, it just puts it on the ballot. And I got the the attorney gave me that advice. I'm not a lawyer. So we have the motion, we have a second. Well, it's just
You want me to write it
accepting
down?
It's just, she has to write all 4 lines of this? It's the same, it's the same. Just to accept it. It doesn't, no. The attorney said, all it does is put it on the ballot. I'm going with what the attorney says. Okay, once we vote on this and open it up, Glenn, I'll...
For my record, that's all. You want me to write what I just read, or what I just spoke? Yeah, I need to. So I move too. Yeah.
Make sure that you're right.
No, you're
There's no need for this motion. This motion is it's going to be on the ballot as presented. The only time you take a motion is actually you could change it.
All right. Well, I did. You're not the moderator.
I was town moderator for years.
Mhm.
There is no motion here.
No, it doesn't do anything.
Right, so there's nothing to vote on. So as moderator,
Still gets to vote.
You don't have to, as moderator, she can reject it because it's as presented already.
You can do that. They can override it. I mean,
You can reject it.
Okay, as you're writing it, what are you adding on? Okay, the amended article will be the entire petition article. I move to accept the Article 29 Community Rights-Based Ordinance, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, as presented inclusive of the 9-page ordinance as written. That is the amended motion. Now I'm opening it up for discussion. Glenn.
This motion means absolutely nothing. The article is already there as presented. If you're not actually making any changes, then this motion is a waste of our time.
Okay.
The article as presented, without any changes, will show up on the ballot exactly as presented already.
Right.
The only time you'd actually have to have a motion is actually if you wanted to make a change on the motion.
Okay.
And this is not making any changes at all. So I think this is
All right.
a waste of time of the body.
All right.
Karen Herdaya, Shivalingam, Pine Arden Drive. I just wanted to comment on that I think one of the distinctions I hear in that listening is that since it doesn't reference the 9-page ordinance here, the ordinance is on the table as you come in, and it has been disseminated, that saying it's inclusive of the 9-page ordinance is just acknowledging that there's more to it than what's written here.
Okay.
So that's,
All right.
that's
Thank you.
how I understand.
Did you have your hand up, Sandra? Okay.
Yeah, briefly, that was why I seconded it. That was my understanding too, that the purpose of that was to make sure that it, registered that it was inclusive of the 9-page ordinance.
All right, thank you. Okay, now I have a question. How is it supposed to appear on the ballot? Well, now I have a question, I guess it's for the attorney. So, what are we putting on the ballot? Just Article 29 as written? Okay, thank you.
Well, we have to vote on this. She was adding, inclusive of the 9-page ordinance as written. So, it doesn't change the intent of the article. All right, we've discussed it, we're going to vote. We're voting Article 29, the entire article, with the addition as presented, inclusive of the 9-page ordinance as written. Now, that does not mean the 9-page ordinance is going to be a part of the ballot. It's back there. It will not be available during the voting. I'm not going to have any of that in the building during voting. It's up to all of you to take one of those for all articles. Okay, go ahead. One more comment.
Josh Adjutant, Main Street. Just want to talk about Article 29 for a second in its entirety, because there seems to be an uneasiness about whether we're voting on the article itself or the motion to move forward. I, like a lot of you guys, were really happy on Wednesday evening when the Site Evaluation Committee voted to reject Eversource's bid for Northern Pass. That, however, does not mean that they're going away. Eversource has already invested $250 million into this project. They're going to go back to the Site Evaluation Committee. They're going to go to the Supreme Court. They will complain to anybody that will listen to them that they need to get this project through. I am in support of Article 29 because of its explicit ecological language, and I feel comfortable that that's what it's going to be used for. So I'm asking anybody that's voting on this to vote in favor of adopting Article 29.
Okay, thank you. All right. Wait just a minute. Okay, this is... Okay. Now there's a request for a secret ballot. Okay. Now I have been handed, before we vote, the way we normally vote, we have a request signed by 5 citizens, a request for a secret ballot vote to accept the community rights-based, as presented, inclusive of the rights-based ordinance as written. That's what they're asking to vote secretly on. Are you asking for a secret vote on the new language? Is that what you're asking? Is that what you're asking for? Go to the podium.
I think that there's some confusion as to what is being asked.
There is.
Yeah. So let me clarify, okay, because I think that this is very important. Essentially, those of us here that are in favor of this warrant article want to keep it intact just how it is, which includes the 9-page ordinance, which is already part of the petition. That's what we want to do, okay? So we want to confirm that is happening by asking for a vote to confirm that. The request for that, now that's what we assumed we're asking for.
Got it.
Yeah, okay. The request, if that is what's actually happening, then yes, that request to have a secret ballot is valid because that is the request that we want to have a secret ballot for.
All right, wait just a minute.
Do it. You got to keep it closed open for an hour.
No, do I have? I have. Now, but I can go on with the other articles as people are voting?
Exactly.
I can, okay. Okay, I've consulted with the attorney on how we're going to do this. Because 5 signatures have been given for a secret ballot, we are going to have a secret ballot on what I just stated. On Article 29, does everybody want me to read it again? Article 29, shall the town of Ashland adopt the community rights-based ordinance to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and ecosystems of Ashland, New Hampshire by establishing a community Bill of Rights which prohibits activities and projects that violate the Bill of Rights and which provides for enforcement of the Bill of Rights against corporations and governments engaged in those activities and projects, inclusive of the 9-page ordinance as written. So now, you go, all right.
Are we voting at this point by secret ballot only on the change of language in this? Yes. So
yes. And the attorney said we can go once a couple people have voted. I mean, everybody has the right to vote on this. That's what this is about, because this is legal. The 5 people have done this. I've checked with the lawyer, but I can continue on with the rest of the articles as people vote. No, no, no. It's just a voting on the change of wording. It's the 5 words added to the, that's what we're voting on. That's what we're voting on.
I have a question. Before we do a secret ballot voting on adding those 5 words, would town council please address those of us here on the legality of this petition?
Sure.
And we understand the legality of the secret ballot on the added 5 words. My question is the legality of this amended petition and also the unamended petition. That might save some time, I don't know.
Legality of the ordinance itself. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I've talked to the town council, and it's a petition warrant article. It's a completely legal petition warrant article. That's the answer I got. I'm not a lawyer. No, it's up, we have this motion on the floor now. We can, before we go into secret ballot, is there more discussion on the floor now?
Good afternoon. As I understand it, right now, the only thing on the floor is the amendment that's being made with the additional language to ensure that folks understand that the 9-page ordinance is incorporated. That's got nothing to do with the underlying, that's a perfectly legitimate amendment. The process for asking for a secret ballot vote has been conducted appropriately, so there's no choice on that. It has to be a secret ballot vote at this point. That can go on while the rest of the meeting is going on. That has nothing to do with the validity of the underlying proposition, the 9 pages itself. Once this amendment is dealt with one way or the other, then you're free to discuss the validity, you can discuss the validity, but you can also discuss the desirability of proceeding with the ordinance one way or the other, just like any other warrant article. Whoop.
The whole thing's kind of... Thank you. Okay. Do they go back to the supervisors?
Yeah, I'm going back.
No, I just wanted to let people know. Okay, you can... All right, Kathleen. We got to get the secret ballot going so we're not here till 6. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, if we are here till 6, that's the way it is.
Yes, it is, but the attorney just said this is the next step. Go ahead.
I think we should do the ballot so everyone can have their full attention on the rest of the articles as they're being presented.
All right. Okay. So now we're doing the secret ballot on Article 29. Okay, folks. Okay, people, this is how we're going to do this. Hello. Article 29 is going to be put to the side while the voting is being counted. The supervisors of the checklist cannot vote. I've asked 3 people to be involved in the vote count. Glenn Dyan, Alice Staples, and Katie Mayer are going to count the votes. We will return to Article 29. Now we're going to move on until the votes are counted. Article 30. Shall the town of Ashland adopt the conflict of interest ordinance as drafted below in accordance with RSA 31:39A conflict of interest ordinance? Board of Select not to recommend 4-0. Comments, questions? Kathleen.
Good thing I'm short, huh? But we already have a code of ethics in the personnel policy. Many of these items that are enumerated are non-enforceable. It will become problematic in a town this size, having relatives serving on the same board. If my maid, Jeanette, and her niece, Jane, serve on the same committee. We also have a brother and sister serving on the 4th of July committee. I don't have any relatives in town, so it doesn't affect me, but it does affect quite a few other people in town.
Okay.
And to try to force somebody because they feel, for one person to try to force somebody to recuse themselves through pressure, I believe is non-enforceable. That even people with bias can add to the conversation, and they may only be one vote.
Okay. Fran?
I think the language in this article is draconian. It's also insulting to the people of Ashland who are willing to put in their time and dedication to the town by serving. As you see, we have so many vacancies that are yet to be filled. And then to put on further restrictions on the ability of people to serve is outrageous. I have said many times, if somebody has a legitimate concern about conflict of interest, they should approach the board or whomever to raise those concerns. But to say that at the outset that there's going to be a conflict just because you happen to be related to somebody or married to somebody, where do you draw the line? It doesn't include step-siblings. It doesn't include best friends. There's all kinds of potential relationships that, by this definition, could cause a conflict of interest. The laws about conflict of interest are very clear. Clearly, if there's a financial gain, that raises questions. Or if there's a direct personal benefit, that raises questions. But sharing an opinion about a matter that affects the town, not one's person, is not a conflict just because you happen to have some sort of a relationship, either by blood or by marriage. Again, I find this whole thing insulting.
Okay. Tasha Singer.
The law is very clear about conflict of interest, and it provides for an allowance to adopt a conflict of interest ordinance under 3139-A. So this is operating within the law. This is just simply expanding on it. It's specifying what a conflict of interest is and what is the remedy to solve that. It doesn't prevent anybody from serving on any boards. It simply means when there's a conflict of interest on a particular issue that the individual on that body would recuse themselves. It doesn't mean that they lose their position. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just simply means that for that specific topic or that decision, they recuse themselves. It's not meant to be offensive at all. Okay, conflicts of interest happen in professional settings all the time to good people. Okay, it's not about somebody being wrong. It's not about somebody being not ethical. It simply delineates what our expectation is around fairness. Okay, thank you.
That's fine. Any further? Go ahead.
Hridaya Shivalingam. I just wanted to add that I teach ethics. That's one of my roles in my profession. And as I look at the different items that are outlined under this, I find it to be very basic in terms of what would be normally expected in a professional organization. So I think far from draconian. I would say I think this is like the bottom line of what would be expected in a professional setting. And again, I think that the portrayal of it as being something that prevents people from being involved is inaccurate, and that it's actually just saying, let's be mindful of when these types of specific instances arise, and let's let the people that are our fellow residents feel some sense of ease that when those come up, we are expected as servants to the community that we will recuse ourselves.
Okay. Kathleen?
My question would be, how would this be enforced? We don't have an ethics committee, a volunteer group. How would this possibly be enforced?
Okay. Is there an answer for that? All right.
If you read the ordinance, it actually gives guidelines for the procedure.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? Tony, Chief Randall. Chief Randall, sorry.
I am the Chief of Police. I'm also a resident of the town of Ashland. I'm going to speak as both the resident and the Chief of Police, so it's clear about how I'm speaking. If there's already a state law for it, why do we need another ordinance?
Okay.
If there's state law, we don't need another ordinance.
All right.
That's my feeling on it. Do what you want. You know, we're all going to vote on this on voting day, but I would highly encourage that we don't need this if there's already a state law.
Okay. Is there anybody with new information? Thank you, Chief. Seeing no other hands, petition Article 30 will appear on the ballot as written. Article 31, Grafton County Senior Citizens Council, 3-cent tax impact. Shall the voters raise and appropriate $6,000 to Grafton County Senior Citizens Council, Inc. for services for Ashland residents in 2018? These services include congregate meals, home-delivered meals, transportation, outreach support, service link support, and more. In fiscal year 2017, Grafton County Senior Citizens Council, Inc. provided services for 102 Ashland residents, and Service Link provided services for 45 residents. The cost of providing these services was $59,636.51. Board of Selectmen voted to recommend 4-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any comments on this? Seeing none, Article 31 will appear on the ballot as written. Okay, I have the results on Article 29. We're going backwards on the secret ballot, the amended secret ballot on Article 29. I'm not going to read the whole thing again. The total cast was 58. Those in favor of the addition at the end was 25. Those opposed, 33. So that particular motion failed. That does not mean the petition article won't appear. It just means that added wording was not, it failed. Any other comments? Go ahead. I know that.
Ginger Grant. Just like Josh Adjunt had said, you know, the decision by the SEC does not mean they're done. And I want to make that clear to everybody. I know a lot of people were like, oh, great, it's over. It's not over. There's another town in Antrim where they were denied for wind turbines, and the corporation went and changed a few things, came back, and went again for a permit, and were given the permit. It is now, it went to the Supreme Court and has been, the decision hasn't been made yet, but the community said, no, we don't agree with this. So there is a possibility that this can come back. They're not done. Now, the RBO that we have put in place for this warrant article protects us from future attempts of unsustainable energy coming through our town. It's not exclusive to Northern Pass. It just says unsustainable energy sources, and it's defined in our RBO specifically.
Okay.
You know, this is, we believe that that the current structure of our government didn't really allow us to say no to Northern Pass. It wasn't really given as an option to us. And we believe that the RBO can change this. It's an ordinance to give power back to the local people, to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our residents, our community, and our natural environment. In our Bill of Rights, New Hampshire Bill of Rights, Article 10 states that the government being instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the whole community, and not for the private interest or emolument of any one man, family, class of man. Therefore, whether the ends of the government are perverted and public liberty manifestly endangered, and all other means of redress are ineffectual, the people may, and of right, ought to reform the old or establish a new government. The doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind. Therefore, as citizens of this community, we have the right to protect what's ours. And there's, you know, some, between the state law and the statute law, there's a little bit of confusion there where it doesn't give us the opportunity to say no to this. But the RBO lets us stand up for our community and say, no, we don't want Northern Pass. We want to protect our environment.
Okay. You were given the 5 minutes, and now that's 3 minutes on any other. All right, the attorney has something to say.
I've been asked to address my view of the legality of the proposal itself, as opposed to the process that you're going through here today. The town of Ashland, like every other community in the state of New Hampshire, was created by the state legislature. The town of Ashland, like every other community in the state, can only exercise the rights and powers granted to it by the state. The state actually, although you might not want to contemplate it, the state actually has the authority and the right to eliminate or abolish municipalities, towns, for example, combine them with others, take them out of existence. Keeping in mind that the state has those sweeping powers and that municipalities in New Hampshire can only exercise powers granted to them, it's my opinion that this ordinance, if passed, will not have any legal effect. You cannot, by local ordinance, change state law. You cannot, by local ordinance, change constitutional provisions, either federally or on the state constitution, and you cannot, by local ordinance, change precedent rendered by the United States Supreme Court. All of which, in my view, and I recognize that I'm not the drafter and folks may have different points of view on this, but all of which appear to be the intent, or at least the result, of this ordinance. That doesn't mean you don't get to vote on it. It will go forward. You can vote on it, but it would be my belief that if it's ever challenged in court, that it is highly unlikely that it would be upheld as a valid exercise of local municipal authority.
Thank you. Gentleman in the back, you're going to have to come up here because people can't hear you. No. Go to the microphone. That's the procedure.
Okay. I just left it at the table. So I understand what the attorney's saying. Right now there's bipartisan legislation in Concord to give this warrant article teeth. So right now, it would not necessarily be legally binding, but contingent on that legislation passing, it would be.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My question is to town council. You said that this could go to court and that as things stand today, would probably lose. What would be the cost to the town of Ashland should this take us to court? But it wouldn't be free. Is that correct?
More than likely not. Fran?
I understand the concerns about Northern Pass. I truly do. And, you know, I applaud those who've been fighting it so far successfully, and we hope those efforts continue, especially for the interveners. But other than the obvious legal ramifications already expressed by council, I have serious concerns about the social ramifications, economic development impacts, and town legal financial obligations should this pass, because you need to read the whole 9 pages. For example, it states that, quote, any natural person domiciled in Ashland may enforce all of the provisions of this law, unquote. Furthermore, it goes on to say that the individual shall be entitled to recover all costs of litigation. This is outrageous. It sets up the real possibility of nuisance lawsuits and high costs to the town's legal services and in turn to the taxpayers. I see this as a real obstacle for economic development. We're getting much closer to the real possibility of redeveloping the mill into an economically viable site. Companies might fear coming in and receiving unfair treatment by the town if this ordinance is in place. We already have strict zoning regulations in place, and new businesses would usually go to public hearing before approval anyway. Again, my concern is not just on the language that affects power companies, but all of the other language, and you need to read it very carefully before you vote for this.
Thank you. Put your card, do your...
I want to make a motion to move the question, please.
All right. I have a motion on the floor to call the question. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Did you get, who did it? To call the question, which means stopping discussion. You got what you needed? Okay. Okay. Article 29. Do you all have the thing? I'm not going to read this again. Oh, we have to vote on the... do we have to vote? Yeah, we have to vote on... All those in favor of calling the question, raise your cards. Thank you. Those opposed? Okay. The ayes have it, and Article 29 will appear on the warrant as presented. All right.
I'd like to restrict reconsideration on all warrant articles that we have since discussed, since the last motion for restriction, up through and including Article 29.
Okay, I have a motion to restrict, second? I have a second. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration, raise your purple cards. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. We're not going backwards. Going forwards. Number 32, I believe. We already did Grafton. Article 32, Tri-County Cap. Tax impact 1 cent. To see if the town of Ashland will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,107 for Tri-County Community Action Grafton County for the purpose of continuing services of the Fuel Assistance Program for the residents of Ashland. Board of Select recommended 4-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. Any questions? I'll take that as a no. Moving right along, Article 32 will be on the ballot as presented. Article 33, Genesis, tax impact 1 cent. To see if the town of Ashland will vote to raise and appropriate $3,500 to support emergency services provided by Genesis Behavioral to the residents of Ashland. Board of Select recommended 4-0, Budget Committee 7-0. Any questions? Article 33 will appear on the ballot. Article 34, Katie, Communities for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth. Estimated tax impact 0. To see if the town of Ashland will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,000 to support Communities for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth, a nonprofit organization serving Ashland and nearby towns. Board of Select recommended 4-0, Budget Committee 7-0. Any questions? Seeing none, Article 34 will be on the ballot as presented. Article 35, Pemigewasset River Local Advisory Committee, tax impact 0. See if the town of Ashland will vote to raise and appropriate $400 for the Pemi River Local Advisory Committee for the purpose of continuing services of reviewing applications for development along the Pemi River corridor, as well as providing water sampling for the Department of Environmental Services and acting as an intervener in the New Hampshire State Energy Commission's review of the Northern Pass project in order to lessen the impact of this project for the residents of Ashland. Board of Selectmen recommended 4-0, recommended by the budget 7-0. Any comments or statements? Lee Sharps has a statement.
Thank you. I just wanted to explain a little bit about what this committee is, because I know there have been some questions in the past on what we do. PERLAC, as we call it, is made up of members from the towns of Bristol, Thornton, Campton, Plymouth, Holderness, Ashland, Bridgewater, and New Hampton. As members, of which I am one, representing our town and the board, we review and comment on state and local permits for activities impacting the Pemigewasset River corridor, which is 1,320 feet on either side of the river. We also use the Lakes Region Planning Commission as our technical assistance to our committee. As a Class B river, we have high aesthetic value and we are acceptable for swimming, fish habitat, and for use of a public water supply if needed. And our mission is to do those things necessary to maintain the PEMI's Class B water quality status. And we are currently in our 17th year. We just completed our 16th year of biweekly water testing on the PEMI and 3 of its tributaries around here and up as far as Bristol. Most importantly this year, we were an intervener in the Northern Pass, and we had 3 very active representatives, the Drapers, Barry and Gretchen, and Max Stamp. And I want to thank them publicly again because they attended all the testimony for the past 2 years, maybe more, and they were also there on our behalf of protecting our town and our aquifer as well. And they were there on the last day. They testified, as the last people to testify, and we were told that night at our last meeting that things went very well and things looked really good, and they were surprised that there was give and take and there were questions by the SEC, so we started feeling really hopeful Tuesday night. But I just wanted to let you know a little bit about what we do, and I think it's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Any other questions? Seeing none, Article 35 will appear on the ballot. Article 36, Voices Against Violent, 1 cent tax impact. To raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 for the fiscal year 2017-18 to support Voices Against Violence, a nonprofit crisis center and shelter providing emergency shelter, court, and hospital accompaniment and general support to women, men, and children who are victims of domestic and sexual violence and stalking. Board of Selectmen recommended 4-0, Budget Committee 7-0. Any questions? Article 36 will appear on the ballot. Article 37, Ashland 150th Committee. Estimated tax impact, 6 cents. To see if the town will raise and appropriate sum of $15,000 to help defray the cost of the 150th celebration of the town being planned by the Ashland 150th Committee, which committee has been established by the Board of Selectmen. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 4-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 7-0. And Jane is going to speak on this.
Hi, I'm Jane Sawyer. I'm chair of the 150th Committee. I just wanted to kind of explain how we arrived at the $15,000 that we're requesting. The police department costs have been estimated at $8,000. The fire department at $4,000. The balance on the fireworks is $3,000. Our total budget is about $43,000, and we got $5,000 last year, and this $15,000 will help defray those costs, and then the balance we hope to get through our fundraising. And there is a budget printout in the back. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Jane? Seeing no hands, that article will appear on the ballot. Article 38, thank you, Jane. Are you in favor of amending Article 1 of Ashland's building regulations? And the purpose of this is to eliminate repetitious language in Article 1 that is the same in Article 2, duties. Anybody have a comment? Good, that's going to appear too. Article 39, are you in favor? We're rolling. 39, are you in favor of amending Article 2.2 of the Ashland Building Regulations to add site plan? Purpose, to mention approved site plans that are already required by regulations prior to issuance of building permits. Article 2.2 would read, I guess with this if a site plan or subdivision of land is involved, the Ashland Planning Board must approve a developer's plan before a permit may be issued. Does anyone have any comments or concerns on this building regulation? Seeing none, that will also appear on the ballot. Article 40. Are you in favor of amending Article 3.1 of Ashland Building Regulations to add market value if new? The purpose, to clarify that prefabricated buildings of a value of $800 or more require a permit. Article 3.1 would then read, any person or persons, partnership, trust, or corporation intending to construct or erect a new building or to make structural alterations of an estimated material cost or market value, if new, of more than $800 shall first make application for a permit on forms obtained from the building inspector, end quote. Any comments? That Article 40 will appear. Article 41. Are you in favor of amending Article 10 of the Ashland Building Regulations? Purpose, to clarify that all amendments to building regulations will be by town meeting vote, except the fee schedule, which will continue to be amended through the public hearing process. Article 10, amendments. The marked out would not appear anymore, and now it would state amendments to these regulations other than adjustment of fees are to be used on at the, that doesn't read right. But it says on at the town meeting. Should it just say, that doesn't make sense? To vote it on, I get, there should be a comma there. I did on at, okay. Does anybody have any comments, questions, other than my comma question? Article 41 will appear. Article 42, are you in favor of amending Article 15 of the Ashland Building Regulations to authorize the Board of Selectmen to set fees? Purpose, to retain the current process of public hearings for amending the building permits. Article 15 fees would read, if this is passed, in accordance with RSA 674:51(3)D, the Board of Selectmen have the authority to set building permit fees, provided that the Board of Selectmen first holds a public hearing on any proposed change in compliance with RSA 41:9A4. Any comments? Zoning ordinance amendments. Okay, this is question 1. Are you in favor of amendment number 1 as proposed by the Planning Board for the town's zoning ordinance, which adds a new section 9B, a groundwater protection ordinance that creates an overlay district according to the map which accompanies the proposed ordinance, and within that area, regulations are established to protect both public and private water supplies from possible pollutants? That's question 1. Okay, your comment?
I'm Mardine Badger, member of the Planning Board. Just want to give a brief background on this proposal. Last fall, in the belief that it was important to protect the quality of our water, a committee was formed with representatives from the land use boards, the Conservation Commission, and the Water and Sewer Commission, with professional assistance from the Lakes Region Planning Commission. The work of this committee resulted in this proposed groundwater protection ordinance. The goal of the ordinance is to preserve and protect our drinking water source and to protect our public water supply from pollutants, which could come from future development or redevelopment. The ordinance will become part of the zoning ordinance, and it creates an overlay district of about 1/2 square mile, which sits on top of the existing zones. It affects 14 properties, 5 properties in the industrial zone, 2 properties in the rural residential zone, and 7 properties in the commercial zone. Most important is that the existing uses on these properties are not in conflict with this proposed ordinance. But if these properties are redeveloped or have a substantial change in use, the site plan review process would include some additional protective elements for review. For example, it might require a stormwater management plan to prevent release of contaminants into the ground, or require proper storage of regulated substances in tight containers or in secure and protected areas. And it may also require a spill containment plan. By passing this ordinance, as I said, the most important feature of this is to protect our public water supply. And we would then join about 60% of the incorporated places in the Lakes region that already have aquifer and groundwater protection zoning districts.
Thank you. Chief Randall.
Just to let everybody know, I'm not speaking as Chief Randall. I'm going to speak as Anthony Randall, resident and local surveyor. I just want to point out that I've looked at this area that they have delineated on their plans. It becomes problematic from a survey standard to actually lay these points out on the ground should I have a project that falls within that zone so we know where the zone line is. I would hope that we just wouldn't have a dashed line on a plan that is kind of nebulous and left for interpretation. Some of our zone lines in Ashland are that way. They're not really clearly identified. I think that we need to do something with either putting some type of meets and bounds descriptions to it that can be reproduced at a later date. Just as if your boundary lines of your home, okay? Whether it's either monumented or a central point where it can be delineated at a later date and put upon the ground. I will tell you I'm all for protecting the water supply for the town of Ashland. I'm merely speaking from wearing my other hat as a surveyor, how it can become problematic later on when we try to define what's in and what's out.
Thank you. Martine.
Thank you. Mr. Randall has already mentioned this question to me, and we will be working with Lakes Region Planning Commission and probably DES also to further define with very specific boundaries what that region is. Just in general, that 1/2 square mile includes the well field, 3 properties along Cedar Lane, and some properties at the far end of West Street, which includes part of that large hillside, a couple private residences, the Comfort Inn, the elderly housing, and a very small portion of the Burger King lot. So it's just about a 1/2 square mile. We will get very more specific boundaries of that region.
Thank you for clarification. Lee?
I just wanted to say that the Pymmy River Committee supports this ordinance because of the proximity of our aquifer to the river. And also, this is kind of a type of RBO that we talked about before, protecting our town for those who are concerned. And after hopefully this is accepted, we will go on to work on protecting our second aquifer, if people don't know about it, which is located on Owlbrook Road. So I hope that in the near future we'll be able to protect that also. Thank you.
Thank you, Leigh. Any other questions on question 1? Then I guess question 2 under zoning. Are you in favor of amendment number 2 as proposed by the Planning Board for the town's zoning ordinance, which amends Article 4.7 to clarify applications, locations, and signs, and sizes of signs on bed and breakfast premises? And then 4.7 would now read, signs located on the property and intended to regulate or guide activities within the property, even though such signs may be incidentally visible from outside the property, are exempt from the sign permit. They shall not exceed 6 square feet in size. Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, question 2 will appear. Question 3, are you in favor of amendment number 3, as proposed by the Planning Board for the town zoning ordinance, which adds a new Article 10 severability saving clause to update to current language ensuring the validity of the ordinance, which will now read, if any section, clause, provision, or portion of this ordinance shall be held to be invalid or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction, such holding will not affect or impair any other section, clause, provision, or portion of this ordinance. Any questions? This will appear. Question 4, are you in favor of amendment number 4 as opposed by the Planning Board for the town zoning ordinance, which amends the definition of sign in Article 10? Note, definitions, note, number of article would change to 11 with added severability, Article 10. Article 11, definitions, sign, any device that shall include any billboard, outdoor sign, notice poster, display figure, painting, message, placard, or any other device which is designated or intended to attract the attention of the public and which is erected and maintained on any property with the purpose to set forth the name of the business or profession conducted on any property, to identify the goods or services produced or sold on any property, or to convey a message to the public. This definition does not include signs warning of hazards on private property or street numbers for private residences. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, this meeting is over. One more thing. Go Patriots!